Source Nation. Join us live now for Transforming Your Mind with licensed couple and family therapist Shy Porter, as she sheds light on the many ways that your mental health can positively impact your daily experiences and how to best implement small changes that can have monumental effects on your quality of life. This show will quickly become your go-to source for great conversation, tips, and insight to help you achieve and maintain the healthy lifestyle you've always wanted. Source Nation, here is your host, Shy Porter.
Hello, Source Nation. Thank you for joining me again. This is Transforming Your Mind with me, your host, Shy Porter. This is a show where I strive to help you achieve a positive mind-body connection so that you can live a fulfilled life. And in light of that, tonight we have an amazing show for you. Joining me in the studio is Dr. Roma Benjamin, and our discussion is going to be about learning disabilities and all of the implications that can have for our children and have on them as they grow into adulthood. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But before I go any further, I want to thank our sponsors who've made this show possible. They include Scott Cares Foundation, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Urban Grandstand Digital, Cat Photography, Hits Masters, New Covenant of Praise Worship Center, and PS Photography. So let me give you a bit of a rundown about her before she starts telling us a little bit about herself. She was an avid youth literacy advocate, or and still is, I imagine, and was a former school principal, and so she has a lot of background working with children and figuring out how we can best advance their progress in society. In light of Black History Month, I wanted to focus on this in particular because children of color do face unique disadvantages in the school system. And so hopefully this conversation will shed light to this topic so that we can move forward together as people of color and just in general. So Dr. Benjamin, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I am doing fine.
Good. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Before we get started, can you just tell us all a little bit about yourself and your passions and all of the wonderful things that you do?
Well, passionate, yes, wonderful. I can't say because right now I'm making people mad, and I understand why. I understand why, but I'm an educator of 20-plus years. I'm also a pastor of 17 years. And the two work hand in hand. And I've been in education as teacher, lead teacher, and as principal. And my drive, my mandate from God is to really advocate for children, kindergarten through 8th grade, in the area of literacy, because I've seen down through the years where children are just passed through the system and they can't read. And, you know, if you can't read, Shy, your life is definitely going to be in turmoil. Even with the technology that we live with today, you still have to be able to read. And so I left the public school system, the failing system that I was part of, that I was also part of promoting failure. I left it to really advocate for literacy, really to deal with the fact, Shy, that our kids can't read. And so my passion is to bring literacy back to the forefront in the schools as well as in the church. And so that is my drive. That is my heart at this time.
Wow. Did I understand you correctly when you said that children are moving through the system as in making it to 8th grade and not being able to read? Like, how far are we talking?
Absolutely. Listen, kids go to school from kindergarten to 12th grade. That's 13 years when you include kindergarten. And they are not reading on or above grade level. The majority of students, especially in the urban schools, read below grade level. So when you're talking below grade level, you're talking about the potential of a 7th grade student sitting in the classroom with a 7th grade reading book or reading material, social studies, science, whatever it may be, but they read on a 3rd grade level. So you can imagine that if a child in the 7th grade is reading on a 3rd grade level, a child in the 11th grade is reading on a 9th grade level, we have problems. that turns into them being labeled as special education.
Right. I'm just curious how that happens in the first place. Where are the cracks where that starts to break down that results in a child just getting pushed along and then all of a sudden graduated from high school reading on, a middle school reading level or worse sometimes?
Well, the average job, to be able to pass a test on an average job, you have to be able to read on a ninth grade level. I know some of the police tests and things, you have to be able to read on a ninth grade level. That's why you don't find a lot of our children, applying for those jobs. And I think the disconnect starts, Shy, is that from kindergarten to third grade, you are learning to read. And from fourth on, you are reading to learn. And so if you don't have the correct fundamentals, if you don't understand the sounds that letters make, then you're not going to spell correctly. Your comprehension is going to be low. And in the least, it is embarrassing to even in the least to say it is criminal to know that this is happening, that it has been happening for years. And especially in Black America, no one, seems to think, how do I now turn this around? How do we justify the fact that our kids can go to school and come out and still can't read?
Right.
And we're really we're talking about the statistics, and we're talking about demographics, and we're talking about socioeconomic disadvantages, and we're talking about the projects and where they live. But in spite of all of that, if you took the time to teach a child how to read, and teach reading is not hard. We've been lied to, Shy. We've been lied to that it is hard to teach a child how to read. And so therefore you said, well, how did this happen? It's been happening down through the ages of time. I keep saying that they did not take God out of school. They took phonics, phonemic awareness, the ability to understand what the sound that letters make, and then to make sense out of it, in a sentence. And then once again, like I said, because this is happening, and it's happening in such a great number, when we're at 90% illiteracy rate, we're in trouble. And then out of that, you got about 30 to 40% of our children in some type of special education program, which labels them. You understand what I mean? And when they get labeled, most of them, especially boys, they get labeled as emotional, like there's something wrong with them that they can't handle. But if you go to the root of the problem, it's because they can't read, and they can't read on grade level. Because if you're in the 7th grade reading on the 2nd grade level, I have to tell everybody you can't read.
Right.
They say, well, my child can read. That's not reading.
Right. What's interesting to me is that, so the child is aware that he can't read, right? But he doesn't want his friends to know that he can't read. And so how does that manifest as far as behavior?
Well, a child is going to misbehave. They're going to disrupt the class when they cannot read. I would, too, if I couldn't read. You would, too, if you couldn't read, because you don't want to be exposed. And a lot of times it's the curriculum that we're dealing with as well. We're dealing with, old teaching. And not that I'm trying to beat up teachers, but come on, somebody's got to change. Something has to happen. Something has to happen in the measure of taking kids, groups of kids, small groups of kids, because, we want to say it's racism. We want to say that the white man did it, or that, because I'm a woman, it didn't happen, or because I'm a black man. We got to take small groups of kids now and give them the opportunity to learn how to read. That would really change the paradigm of our school system, because the public school is not going anywhere. And we know it's failing. So if it is failing, then what do we do to change a failing environment? Because we're not going to be able to try to change the public school. The people can go in, they can argue, they can fight over it. It's going to be, it's built in stone. But then we got to be able to come up with other options that will address illiteracy and now bring literacy back to the forefront. And we understand one thing here, I'm telling you, and I know this because I was in the system. Our kids can't read. We socially promote them. We promote them based on athletic skills and ability, which is crime. This is a crime. This is embarrassing to know that when our kids come out of school, they still have to work in a restaurant with pictures on a register because they can't read on the level that they're supposed to be able to read on. The factory mentality.
Right.
And something has to be done.
Right. And I'm curious what have your intervention points been along the way? Because we can identify the areas where things need to change, but I think the biggest question is how, and what are the steps that we can take to get there?
Well, we need more options, and opening literacy reading centers, that focus on an intensive program to drive reading, to be able to write a sentence correctly. We could shove social studies, science, and math and all that down their throat. But it's a crime that they come out and still can't read. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You don't have to be a mathematician. You don't have to be the smartest. But you don't have to even be a genius. But you should, after going through so many years of school, you should be able to read on and above grade level. So one of the options that we have and one of the structures that we do is what I do is I go across this country talking about and telling people how to open literacy and reading centers. I'm not talking about opening a school. I'm talking about opening an environment where you can train people how to teach children how to read, how to build their confidence once again, and how to give them hope once again. Because in the school system, and I have kids that are in my center that they're not bad kids. If you understand what I'm saying, they're not bad. They're not going to cause any disruption in the class. They are not going to be disrespectful and rude to the teachers, but they can't read. So they slip through the cracks. You understand what I'm saying? Because you either have a program for your extreme behaviors or you have a program for your gifted children.
Right.
And then the kids who are in the middle who will never give you a problem. I'm dealing with that right now with a parent who has their child in a cyber school, but she needs the physical instruction of a teacher on a daily basis. Because when you're in the ninth grade reading on the third grade level, you have a ninth grade book.
Right.
She's not going to survive. This young lady, this young man, they're not going to survive in that environment. So that curriculum is not for them. If you understand what I'm saying, that curriculum is not for them. So what do? We literally have to go back of reading. Because if we don't, we're going to have, once again, non-tax-paying adults. We're going to continue to increase the welfare system, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
Even with technology as advanced as it is, and most of the jobs, it's online. You got to read it.
Right.
You have to be able to read it. After the first 2 or 3 pages on an online application, it gets very intense. And I've heard kids say to their mamas, would you take it for me? Would you do it for me? Would you help me with it? Because they couldn't get past, after they did their name, address, phone number, and all that, the rest of the stuff was foreign to them.
Wow. Okay, Source Nation, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Transforming Your Mind with me, Shy Porter, and tonight my special guest is Dr. Roma Benjamin, and we're discussing learning disabilities and the implications for children as they go through the school system and then as they go into adulthood. The phone lines are open. If you would like to call in to ask Dr. Benjamin a question, the number to dial in is 619-924-0933, and then press option 1. Okay, Dr. Benjamin, we actually do have a question already. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Hi, Dr. Benjamin. In many states, when children are not ready for the next grade, the school gets the parents' permission to either retain the child or advance them. Usually, I've noticed that the Black community will push their child forward. This needs to change. What are your thoughts?
I agree 100%, and they usually want to push them forward. That's a great question, too. They usually want to push them forward because they don't want the child to be embarrassed. They don't want their friends that their friends have moved on, and they're still in, the same grade. And so are we going to really deal with the value of understanding, not just education, because education is a loaded word. Education is every day. But we're talking about giving kids the right consistency because it is embarrassing to know that we cannot justify the kids do not know the sounds of the alphabet. So to pass them on, I have a parent right now who their child was in one school, they put him in another, and they put the child back in the first grade, and they asked me what did I think. I said good, because now she's going to get what she did not get before. Don't worry about the age. Don't worry about the embarrassment. We're too concerned with things that are minor, because the thing that is major, if she comes out of that first grade and she doesn't have the right components for reading, second and third grade is going to be a travesty. And so I do believe that we need to stop promoting kids based on age and social ability and all that, and really focus on what that child needs. And I'm telling you, at the root of all of this is strong literacy. That's what the root of this is.
And I would also venture strong family support, because if you think about it, if those children who didn't get the education they needed when they were younger move to the system, they graduate, they're going into adulthood, and then they have kids, they don't know how to help their children beyond the level that they achieved. So then it becomes a systemic problem that perpetuates throughout generations, and then here we are today facing these issues.
Right. You're 100% right, because when parents don't have what I call, a strong reading background, they become embarrassed, and, they come to school and it doesn't turn into, a mature conversation. It almost, I've been there and done that, turns into arguing and cussing and, blame and, the blame game. But, once again, as an adult, you can go find somebody. There's adult literacy throughout the country. I'm even going to admit that eventually, to connect it to the children, where you can go and get what you need to read proficiently and or above proficiency. But we can no longer hold the children back. You understand what I mean? Because if we hold the children back, then they're going to be labeled, as usually as an emotional disturbance, and really they're not really an emotional disturbance. To really be honest with you, because I'm not talking about schizophrenia and bipolarism. We're talking about a child that is upset, who probably feels deep down inside, I'm not going to make it. I can't do this. I need help to do this. And so when you're in a classroom with 25 or 27 and you could get through, without being recognized and noticed, then that becomes reality to them that they can't do it. And that's where we have to step in and say, okay, we need to do more things. That's why I go all over the country talking about opening literacy centers, because you could create a small environment, small as the new mega. You could create a small environment. Just imagine taking 20 kids and causing them to be able to read and proficiently and or above. That would change the whole course of school building.
Right.
Can you imagine if superintendents and that the kids are failing, because every year you get an F on the report card, but you still don't do anything about it. How about bringing them in your office, 5 of them, and teaching them how to read?
Right. Wow. Okay, I do believe that we have a caller in the queue. Caller with the last 4 digits, 0577. You are live with Dr. Benjamin. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, hi. Hi, Dr. Benjamin.
Hi.
Thank you so much for taking my call. My question is, you mentioned earlier about the parents not allowing their child to go forward even when they know their child is not ready. So how do we as parents stop this from taking place? I mean, how do we deal with the school system that continuously allow this year after year after year? What are our options?
Mom, you have to put your foot down. I've had parents, when I was principal in the school district, and they would ask me, should they move their child on, and I'm straight honest with them. I would tell them, no, don't do it. And I've had parents who didn't know what to do, and the option needs to be left up to them. It cannot only be left up to the school. And so parents need to go in and say, I don't want my child to move on. You have that right. You really have that right, based on if you have your scores, and not just the classroom grades, but you take your reading scores, and when your child is reading below the grade level, you have the right to tell them, I want my child on grade level before they move to the next level. You have the right to do that. You have to put your foot down. You have to call the people that you need to call, those that could advocate for you to make sure that that happens, because it is embarrassing in the least to say that our kids are being pushed through the system and they know they can't read.
Right. I agree. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
You're
taking
welcome.
my call. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good night. That was a great question, and it was one that was on my list to ask as well. Following up on that, we talked a little bit about parents who don't, who are struggling with their own reading and helping their children move past the level that they got to. I want to talk about the connection between reading and writing because they are particularly related. If you have any insight on the children's end or the parents' end, I'm really curious to hear about what you think.
And that's something, because I do reading and writing with the children. I told you we specialize in this. We don't specialize in math and social studies and science because it's inclusive to reading. If you can't read, you can't do the other stuff, Right. But reading and writing, they are very much connected. And most of the time, we have to deal with our children understanding, what comes at the beginning of a sentence and what happens at the end and the punctuation marks and the different things. And so with reading, you have to incorporate some writing, because I always tell the students with the vocabulary words, if you can put that word in a sentence, then more than likely you understand it.
Okay.
You understand what I mean? Not pull it out of the dictionary to get a dictionary explanation. But once we read it in the content, and then you put it in a sentence, you can understand it. So once you put it in a sentence, then we deal with sentence structure. We deal with, punctuation. We deal with how long paragraphs need to be, because all of this is connected, and it should be done on a daily basis. It cannot be done prior to a standardized test. Neither can it be done prior to trying to get in college. This is something that is consistent, should be consistently taught, so that the child can grasp it. I trained the people in my center to do this so that I could train other people. And some of the remarks they say to me is, well, I'm learning myself. This is helping me. This is strengthening me. And, they're literate. They really are. But it is strengthening them and helping them that in this day and age, our kids don't even know how to write in cursive to write their name if they have to write their name, if you understand what I'm saying. So we have to reading and writing connected, and it must be consistently done, not just to pass a test. This needs to be what life is about.
Excellent. And just to clarify, where are these literacy centers located so far? I know that you're working on creating more and more, but so far, where is some location?
Yes, I'm working on here in Harrisburg. Then I'm working on one I want to say is New Valley or New Spring, New York. I'm talking with people in North Carolina to get that moving. I'm talking with someone in New York, the Bronx, New York, I believe it is, or Mount Vernon, New York, where I'm from, to start there. And so when someone says, what do? I go back to the basics and say, open a literacy center. And I'm going to tell you something. The church is very key in this because you already have a building, you have the kids. So how embarrassing is it that we could pastor a church and our kids can't read?
Right.
You understand? And the Bible, we talk about God, the word is in the Bible. So you can't read it. You understand what I mean? You have to listen to what someone else says about it. This is the travesty. And these are the things that are really happening with our children, and then they end up with no hope. And then they end up destroying whatever comes before them, getting into drugs, early pregnancy. I'm dealing with someone right now that they're trying to address young women. They're trying to take this reading to young women so we can deal with early pregnancy. Because when you sit down and test them, you find that they can't read, Shai.
No, that makes perfect sense. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but we're almost out of time. But before I let you go, I know it's been such a great conversation. I wish we had more time. I want you to give out your content information so Source Nation knows how to follow you and continue to support you in your efforts.
Okay, my website is www.newsound, L as in literacy, T as in technology, C as in center.com. You can also follow me on Facebook, New Sound, or Roma J. Benjamin. I'm on Facebook as well. And if you want to talk directly to me, you can give me a call at 545-4594. And if we don't answer, someone will call you back within 24 to 48 hours. And that number, once again, is 717-545-4594.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on. I would love to have you back on the show, so we'll be in contact if you are willing to come back and continue this conversation.
Absolutely. I would love to come back, Shy. Absolutely.
Good. Thank you. And hopefully we can talk about even getting something done in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, because I think that would be excellent to have your literacy center. So in the meantime, have a wonderful night, and we will be in touch, okay?
You too. Thank you so much again.
You're welcome. Thank you.